So here's the thing, guys. I was going to rewrite the whole tech, but um, I mean, I already wrote it in my own way. But why is this clipping so much? Can we turn that down a little bit? Check, check, check. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that I was going to write my proprietary tech all over again, but the best way to do that is while performing the extraction, and because I quote unquote got arrested, quote, well, no, I did go to a jail, and then basically there's a total of 95 years against me, and yet what I've done is a good thing. So that's why I'm going to keep talking about it, but I'm just not going to do it again for now. I'm not going to do the extracting, and at this moment, I'm not going to go through the process of writing it again, because I think I could simulate it from my memory pretty well and write a pretty good one. But to be honest, that would be a bit irresponsible of me, because if I miss something, then it's a bad tech. So I'm just not gonna. I'm straight up not gonna write the personal tech right now, because if I miss something and I share it, I fucked you over, and I don't want to fuck anyone out. I don't want to fuck anyone over. So I'm just gonna go through the previous tech, which inspired my own, real quick here. The Max Ion tech, Sibs Salt tech. Um, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you know what's good, son, because there's an unspecified measurement in this tech. I'm gonna tell you what the correct measurement is. You ready? This is what I figured out on my. I figured out. I turned this, which is not exactly in plain language. It's pretty close, but in order to figure out what the fuck they're actually saying, you have to do it. You have to do what they're saying. And the way that I wrote it, the way I wrote my version, you could actually read it and understand what it means without actually doing it, because it was written in a way that was easy to understand. And this is not written in a way that's easy to understand, and it's on purpose because it's encrypted. And that's why they also left the correct amount of salt, which is here. So, oh wait, no, hold on. Is that right? No, it wasn't that. It was no. Huh, I even forgot. It wasn't the amount of salt, it was the amount of acid. Right? Is that right? No. What about base? Was it the amount of base? No. What the fuck am I missing? It says minimal something. Minimal hot water. What the fuck? No, that's not right. How is that crazy? That's so crazy. Wait, now I have to read through it again. Well, apparently I can't let you know what the fuck is good because I seem to be suffering some sort of memory loss. Oh well. I was gonna clarify some shit, but now I can't remember how I got to the part where I clarified it. And that's just too fucking bad. I don't do this part. And this also seems fucking unnecessary. Now, I could have sworn to you that there was an unspecified measurement in this tech. But now that I'm reading through it, okay, first of all, I don't think they mentioned theoretically. I didn't do the I chose not to do the freezing in mine also. Okay, well, I guess I'm just writing it again, and I guess I'll find. I'm not gonna write it. I'll just verbalize it. So I'm pretty sure. Okay, so it's per 100 grams of powdered Mimosa hostilis. For every, right? Is that right? See, double check, because if I'm saying the wrong thing, you need to double. Here we go. 50 to 100. Yes. It says you can be used for any size of initial plant material. I suggest not going above 100 grams because by the time that you have extracted that dimethyltryptamine from the 100 grams, you should have exactly as much as you need to use as a personal medicine while you work on the next one. Not immediately. You should, I mean, you can immediately go into the next 100 grams. That is acceptable if you're extremely sick and you need this medicine. That should give you enough time to do your activities of daily living. But I would recommend trying to spread it out over a period of time where you're not rushed in order to do the extraction. And I think 100 grams is perfect for personal 100 grams, which then translates, look, a yield of 3%. It's not 100 grams of DMT. Whoops. And frankly, this 3% I think you would have to use some pretty extreme measures. Your average yield should be 1%. So that means 1 gram of DMT for every 100 grams of powdered Mimosa hostilis root bark. And that should last you long enough to get you to the next extraction. And if you achieve some compounding where you have some left over, then good for you. Honestly, you probably shouldn't need to use that much. I wouldn't recommend storing too much of it at one time, especially in a society that doesn't yet accept this as a medicine, which is backwards as fuck. It's like not accepting water as a form of hydration, which to America is actually not that crazy. People would rather drink a Coca-Cola or a Sprite half the time, or a Monster or a Red Bull, than actual fucking water. And the water you buy in stores half the time isn't even actual fucking water. So I guess what I'm saying, it's not wrong. It's just still very crazy, but it's because the world is crazy right now. Anyway, this is not a lie, I don't think, but it's like, how would you get 3% when this plant consistently has 1%. And if you do the extraction correctly, it should remove 100% of the non-dimethyltryptamine material, and it should extract 100% of the available dimethyltryptamine. So unless you're growing your Mimosa hostilis in a further rich DMT containing soil, like unless you've figured out how to compound the amount of, which at that point you're not, yeah, I guess you could be extracting it if it grew naturally, if you just encouraged it to, like you could extract a full 3 out of it. So yeah, theoretically, but it should be 1. Let's see. Prepare. So I did not do this part. I did it and I found out it fucking, if you're doing it for personal matters, it doesn't make a difference. It just makes your process take like way too fucking long to be relevant anymore. So the actual thing that you should do is just, you have a jar that you can seal up. It's like this big. And you seal it up, or you have it unsealed. You pour your 100 grams of root bark powder in there. And then you put, they say approximately 300 to 400 milliliters. Just make sure that the root, that's a good measurement, but just make sure that you have enough water for the root bark to be like a liquid. Hydrate the root bark material to a liquid form so that it's not chunky and stuff. Acidify. So like I said, we're skipping over this part. What we're doing is actually we have a warm water bath, which you can just accomplish that by take the top off of a crock pot that has a stage, like a metal stage in it, so that it's not on the bottom of the crock pot, but it's still, if you fill water, you can put it on low, put the oven on low and heat the water. Not oven, the stove, and then you can heat the water. It should already be in the glass. This is what's meant by glass extraction vessel. Just put the stuff in the jar and leave it in there, and then add ascorbic acid. I think this is what it says, small amount. Yeah, here it is. Okay, thank God I figured it out. This is what I clarified. A small amount of ascorbic acid, using the molarities involved. And I'm not gonna go through the calculation right now because I don't fucking feel like it, mate. But the answer is 10 grams. 10 grams of ascorbic acid. And it doesn't matter if you use 50 milliliters of water or 100. I would suggest use 10 grams of ascorbic acid and 100 milliliters of water. And by the way, filtered water, it doesn't have to be artificially filtered. Actually, it's better if it's not. Filtered water just means like well water or spring water or any naturally clean water source. They're just saying don't use tap water. That's what they're saying. Don't use tap water in a city that uses chemical cleaning. That water should be fine for showering and you should be able to drink that water, but just don't use it for this. Use a natural water source. Preferably a well to a spring, but spring should work also, as long as it's clean enough. Yeah, but the answer here is 10 grams of ascorbic acid. And then I would suggest 100 milliliters of water. And then yes, heat in a warm bath and stir occasionally for 8 hours. This is not cooking. You're not fucking cooking this product, bro. Do not try to fucking cook this shit and treat it like a fucking culinary arrangement at this point. What you're doing is called a chemical extraction, okay? You're not trying to get anyone cooked. You're not finna cook up on your ops. You're doing the opposite. You are explicitly extracting. Your mission is to extract, which means you're prioritizing your own self-preservation. You are not trying to hurt anyone because that will inhibit your ability to protect yourself, because you'll be spending energy on trying to quote unquote cook someone when you could be getting the fuck out of Dodge, you bitch. So let that go through your head. What you're doing here is you're slightly lowering the viscosity of the solution, of the chemical solution you've created, which contains MHRB powder, water, clean water, that's really what they mean, clean water, and now some citric acid. And when you bring the temperature of the water up from room temperature, you allow the things to mix together, and the citric acid, when it mixes with the MHRB, will in and of itself break the cell walls. Correct? Correctamente? Usamente? Either way, what you're doing is you're acidifying, and I'm pretty sure the point of this is to allow the cell walls of the MHRB to break down so that the dimethyltryptamine is freed from the cell walls of the plant. So fuck a DFAT, by the way, bitch. Shut the fuck up. Salinate. Yes. 70 to 80 grams of salt. Once again, you can use 200 milliliters. You can use 300 milliliters. You can use 400 milliliters. I wouldn't use more than 400. I would use either 200. The point is enough water to get the salt into the water. Enough water to get the salt into the jar. That's what I'm saying. And out of the measuring cup. You need to get all that salt out of the measuring cup. Start with 200 milliliters if you want. What do they say? Yeah, hot water. Hot, clean water. Once again, instead of filtered, it should say clean. And then if there's still, you pour that in the jar, and if you still got some salt left over, just pour a little more water in there and get the rest of the salt in. As for the base, 40 grams of NaOH, lye with sodium hydroxide, which is just soap. It's just a really strong soap. But the thing is that if you get it on your skin undiluted, it can burn you. You know that movie Fight Club? Don't put that stuff on your hands, on your face, on your eyes. Be very careful with it. In fact, you have to wear gloves. And I would recommend the ones that go down your arms. You have to wear gloves. It's not a joke. Don't joke about it. Don't fucking play with it. Either use it in a diluted form for soap, or use it like this, or whatever you need to use it for. Don't fuck around with it on your body, because it can. The thing is, you see how it's pH of 12 plus? Well, what do you think happens to your body if your body ends up with a pH of 12 plus? The answer is electrolysis ceases, meaning that you cannot fire impulses through your nerves to perform your involuntary vital functions such as breathing, heartbeat, swallowing, digestion. Essentially what happens is you very, very quickly show very intense symptoms of myasthenia gravis. It's like everything immediately acts like it is totally atrophied at once. So don't fuck with your pH like that. Be very careful, and it can just fuck your skin up too, man. Just be careful. A little bit might not be that bad, but the point is just be careful. That's the annoying thing is like me telling you to be careful. That's annoying, but I guarantee you it's less annoying than having to deal with some of the more severe repercussions of accidentally throwing your pH out of whack, like way out of whack. Okay, and then they say after add 40 grams of lye, and this is LYE, not LIE. Always be honest. By the way, honesty is the best policy. This is just a phrase used to describe this product. In cool filtered water, that's okay, yes, because actually, sodium hydroxide will have an exothermic reaction. I think that is what it's called. And when you mix it with the water, it will actually heat up on its own. So if you use warm water, it just increases risk here because you don't need it to be hot because the solution of the MHRB, the water, and the citric acid is already heating. It's already warm enough. And actually, you want to get this stuff into that jar as quickly as possible. You still have to wait the 8 hours or so. But then when it's that time, you can also, here's another thing real quick. When you add the salt, you can either go straight to this, or what I like to do is I like to let this sit overnight. Once you put the salt in, because what's happening is that salt is bonding to the DMT, and I even will turn the heat off as well. And I'll just let it, because it's basically the DMT is acting kind of like a free radical, which is not a bad thing, but it's just that its behavior is seeking to bond. And what my understanding is that this sodium chloride, it bonds to the dimethyltryptamine as a placeholder, and then it makes it more stable. It's basically like, you know how people will salt meat, like a steak or something, they'll put salt on it to store it. It's for preserving the integrity of the chemical so that it doesn't quote unquote go bad or whatever, which basically in this case is just decompose. If the dimethyltryptamine decomposes, then it will be less effective. And so my understanding is that the sodium chloride creates an ionic bond with the dimethyltryptamine in a way that strengthens the inner ionic bonding. Or whatever, bitch. And so back to the base, after waiting all that, once you start mixing the sodium hydroxide with the water, I would try to be fairly quick about getting it into the jar that you're trying to work with the MHRB. And then, yeah, 2 hours is pretty good, low heat. And then let it cool. And then the thing is, you really got to let this shit cool. So, like, leave it alone again for a while. Like, it has to be room temperature. This is, once again, it's okay to leave that overnight or something. But once, how do I put it? Yeah, so then this is the part where you put some naphtha in there. And you got to warm the naphtha up. The jar has to be at room temperature. And the naphtha, now you want to heat a little bit of the naphtha in the water bath. So put a snack bowl, like not super small bowl, but like a glass like bowl that you could put like trail mix in. Not a huge family chip bowl. Like this big, like 2 hands. Put a glass bowl in the water bath and heat the naphtha up to the point where it's slightly warm. Definitely don't make it that warm, and I recommend using an electric stove just in case, so that you don't so that the open flame doesn't accidentally come in contact with the naphtha, because naphtha is flammable, and while it's not necessarily explosive, it can still cause a problem. And it also, this is really important, when you heat it up even a little bit, it already produces toxic fumes, and when you warm it up, you are evaporating some of it into the air, which makes the toxicity that much more. I would say that's the most toxic part of the process. This whole part of the process, the lye, can be avoided by just wearing gloves. This is a lot more difficult to deal with, so I would recommend have a good ventilation system, because that's probably the most. The acidifying is nothing. Although I don't recommend it, you can actually eat or drink the MHRB. Like, you can just make a tea out of it and drink it. I just don't recommend it because it's a very powerful antibiotic, and if you're not sick and you drink it, it can mess up your stomach bacteria. You have bacteria in your intestines, and you need that bacteria in order to digest food properly. So it's kind of like if you drink distilled water, you can actually still be deficient. It can actually make you sick because it's deficient in minerals like salts, and it can actually deplete your system of like minerals and salts and stuff like that. So that's why I wouldn't recommend drinking too much of the MHRB tea, just because it'll do something similar but with bacteria for your stomach and stuff. But it's really good if you actually have like a stomach infection. You know, obviously don't just rely on it as a cure-all, because it could actually still make it worse if it's the wrong type of infection. Because you could have like an open ulcer or something, and that might not be good to use with who knows? You know, you got to figure out what works for you, bitch. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so warm up the naphtha a bit. Just don't be stupid. Figure out what the fuck it is and don't be stupid. And then pour it into the jar, seal the jar, and swish it around. I think that this is the most important part of the extraction process. I think that the way that you swirl that jar has a huge impact on the way that dimethyltryptamine I don't know. I think it has an impact on the pattern that the dimethyltryptamine creates in its environment. I'll put it that way. So I like to try to make like a figure 8 kind of thing, and you'll feel it. You'll know it when you feel it. And then you put it back down and you let it settle, and eventually the naphtha separates from the MHRB solution. And that is at the point you want to make sure the naphtha has contact with the MHRB solution in a way that it like has surface contact to transfer the dimethyltryptamine from the MHRB solution to the naphtha, because what's going on there is that the dimethyltryptamine is out of the cell walls of the MHRB. It is no longer being held inside of those cells. It is out in the water solution, and it's not hydrophilic, but it has a higher affinity for the naphtha solution. It has a higher affinity for the naphtha solution, for the naphtha, than it does for the water. And so as long as you give it the chance to migrate, to transfer into the naphtha, and you get it contact, like it's basically like rolling around two different types of the same substance, like yin and yang. That's it. You gotta swirl it around like it's the yin and yang. That is the best explanation I can give you. I called it a Mobius strip in my notes, but yet for those unquantumly initiated, but that you know some Eastern philosophy, that swirl it around like the yin and yang, and then let it settle again. And then what I do, I was using Jello shot syringes, but you can just use any suction puller or whatever, as long as it's like metered. you just try to pull the top layer of the naphtha off of the MHRB solution and transfer it into a vessel, like a baking pan, like a Pyrex baking pan, a glass one that you can put in the freezer. And you try to get that top layer of the naphtha. And I wrote some other cool stuff in there about like the way to do that so that it doesn't, like, something can happen. Oh, right. A third layer can form. I think that happens when you use too much sodium hydroxide. I think a soap layer forms, and it can interfere with your ability to separate the naphtha from the MHRB solution. So just make sure you don't use too much sodium hydroxide. Yeah, and then basically the point is that when you get the naphtha going through the MHRB solution, it pulls the dimethyltryptamine in the naphtha. Then you pull the naphtha out and you put it into the baking dish or whatever you want to use. That's just one thing that works. Then you do it again. And then you do it again. I think you only need to do it 3 times. I think you can put, like, I don't remember how much it was, but you don't have to use the smallest amount of naphtha. But you'll figure out, like, through trial and error what the right amount is to use and how many times you should do it. Because, you only want to do it so many times or else you start losing your mind. And then when you have that baking dish full of naphtha, or not full of it, but, having the naphtha, just make sure you cover it, put it in the freezer, and it'll crystallize. And then when it's done crystallizing, like 1 or 2 days later, probably leave it in for 2 days. Then you pour all of the naphtha out, either just into the motherfucking sink, but carefully so that you don't, like, accidentally pour out free floating dimethyltryptamine crystals. You can either just pour the naphtha out into the sink, or what I like to do is I like to pour it into a separate container, like a mason jar, so that just in case, if a fair amount of the dimethyltryptamine, which should have precipitated, the word is precipitated. And this is the most fascinating part of the process, is the crystallizing process. This shit is not crashing out, bro. It's doing the opposite of crashing out. It is precipitating, which is an additive process. It is beautiful. It's like the numbers of the matrix falling. They've come from whence else into our reality, and they are sacred. There's nothing crash out about this process. It is pure magic, and it resembles the way that matter forms in our universe through oscillation of energy units, which are seemingly arbitrary but somehow have inherent meaning to our physical reality. So keep in mind that this entire process is sacred AF, and that if you're going to use this substance, you are going to meet God. God is going to communicate with you directly. You have to be prepared for that consequence, because you need to be able to express yourself to others in a way that is socially acceptable while maintaining a constant conversation with God, which will become much easier if you just follow the path. If you catch my drift. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. Now you have it. There you have it. Then, okay, the thing is, after you pour the naphtha out, and you have the crystallized DMT in the baking dish, you need to set it on its side against a wall, preferably with a towel under it, and then blow a small fan at it, like strong enough that it's blowing air at it, and don't set it right up next to it or else you'll blow all the crystals away. But like set it back and get some good airflow so that the naphtha will dry. Just setting it out is not good enough in my opinion. You need to blow some air at it, and it should be room temperature air. And yeah, that should evaporate the naphtha. And then you need to scrape the crystals. Honestly, the best thing you can do is just use a razor blade, like an X-Acto knife razor blade. And just be careful with blades. Please don't cut yourself or someone else. and then recrystallization is fucking bullshit. And I've heard someone, not bullshit, but excuse me, I don't mean to be so judgmental. This recrystal, same thing with the DFAT. It's not fuck the DFAT, and it's not fuck. Whoops, it's not fuck the recrystallization. I'm saying that as a colloquial shorthand for the. Please omit these in the process that I'm describing. How about that? Yeah, and then something about like washing with naphtha. I just stay away from that for now. For my part of the process, just stay away from that. What's the only washing with naphtha part is when you pour the naphtha out into the sink, you need to wash it down with water so that it doesn't like become overly toxic or whatever, so that it dilutes. Just wash it down with water. I don't know what this. What I think there was someone was saying something about like when you get the crystals, if they're not pure enough, you can basically do an extraction on the extraction, but you just go straight to the naphtha. I didn't really see any benefit in trying to do this because I was so certain that everything I did up to that point was so clean and pure that it wasn't going to increase the purity of my product. It was just going to make me lose product. So I just, after you've got that crystallization and you pour the naphtha out and you dry the naphtha and you scrape it out, and you can store it in a vessel as well. Just make sure it's in a vessel that you can get it back out of. You're going to be really upset if you put it into something that you can't get it out of. Well, maybe not. Maybe if you're good with your emotions, you can just go, oh, well, that was a learning experience. That's what I would hope for you. So if you make a mistake like that, you're just like, huh, okay, I guess I'll do another extraction then. But that's it. Yep. No need to recrystallize. Just instead of this, recrystal, just what this should mean is do the whole process again, starting with the 100 grams of MHRB. And do you see what I'm saying? That's not written in a straightforward way in the sense of that's cryptic. It's cryptic and it's muddy in its terminology. I mean, it's, yeah, technically that, if that's what it means, technically it does actually say that in some shape or form. If you re-extract, basically, if you still need more of this product, just do the whole extraction again. And then this is the last step. So they repeated the last step. That's how they wrote it. And I wrote it in a way that was much more clear. Although I admit this was clear enough to figure it out from. It just took me multiple tries. But once I had it, once I had my own version of the tech, and it was straightforward enough for me to actually realize what I was supposed to be doing, it worked every time. Literally every time. As long as nothing went wrong, like meaning I didn't get deviated, it worked literally every time. Patience is a huge part of this process. And if you make a mistake, you have to remember that you made that mistake and don't be like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. But when I actually didn't do anything wrong, it worked every time. And then there's more information that could be cool and explain stuff to you. I don't know. I don't remember if I read it or not. But I just know that it's like just explaining some of the concepts. So, most of that was from memory once I started reading it again. I'm very glad that I didn't give up and that I remembered that the answer that I brought to light was that it's 10 grams of ascorbic acid. And that you can go ahead and use 100 milliliters of water or whatever. So, yeah. And that you should get about 1 gram out of 1 gram extraction out of it pretty much every time. And I'm already being threatened with violence and with unnecessary forced incarceration, and the total amount of time that it could take from my life is essentially my entire life. So I don't see any harm in fucking talking about this because they already took my lab notes and documented my lab notes. So why should they have the only version of it? That's fucking like not cool. It's not cool that you took it from me in the first place. It's not cool that you're saying that this process is illegal. It's like basically the least illegal thing anyone could ever do. And the responsible use of this should be required for law enforcement. This should be the crux and is the crux of law enforcement. This exact process is 100% the basis of law enforcement behavior. And so saying that this process is illegal means that law enforcement is illegal and therefore you cannot enforce that law. And this is the problem with America's current legal system, is that you people have taken what used to be a legal system and you've turned it, and it used to be a court of law, and you've turned it into a court of public opinion. Oh, well, I think that, well, that person's tripping, so they must be wrong, right? Am I right, guys? Right. All of you say that I'm right, so I'm right. No. You're wrong. And you think that being violent and hurting people makes you right. Not only does it not make you right, it also makes you an asshole. Stealing people's shit doesn't make you right, and threatening people with guns and taking their shit doesn't mean you bought it. And if you want to get criminal, I can end your life. And if you don't believe me, ask God. Do I want to end your life? No, I don't. I want to populate the stars with humanity, and the only way for us to do that is to become not only symbiotic with this exact chemical, but we actually have to depend on it. It's already within our system of life. And one of the main reasons that humans have become so unhealthy over the past 20, I'm going to limit it to 20 years, since the internet became popular, is because we spend so much time with screens and they interfere with our sleep cycle and they interfere with our light cycle primarily. And they deplete us. They deplete us because we are not recovering properly. And what they deplete us of mostly is dimethyltryptamine. Across the board, we have a dimethyltryptamine deficiency in our society. And it's what's been keeping us alive. It's what inspires creativity. Think of this. Dimethyltryptamine is the chemical responsible for dreams, okay? Melatonin is the chemical responsible for sleep. Dimethyltryptamine is the chemical responsible for dreams. And if you can learn how to effectively daydream, as well as effectively dream, but also effectively dream while awake, then you too can be a survival genius. You too can live well and live often. And that is my promise. But you have to do this with God in mind. You have to do this in order to praise God. If you do not do this in order to praise God, you will find yourself with nothing, because Satan is just the embodiment of destruction, okay? Now, let's just say that whatever your intention is, this thing magnifies it by an unbelievable factor, okay? And if you are just doing this to be destructive, if you're just doing this process to be destructive, it will destroy you. No matter how much you destroy before it destroys you, it will eventually destroy you, and you will not like how it does so, okay? Once again, that's a promise. And if you put your intention towards God and specifically love with this process, you will be rewarded instead of punished. And that is how you can use this as a proper medicine. Along with, you actually need to study medicine, meaning what makes something work well, what is sanity, like hygiene. It's basically just hygiene. Use proper hygiene. Learn how to find your limits Just like with an extreme sport, you don't just jump into trying to do the craziest fucking flip that you can think of. You start at a low basic level, just like you should always start at a low basic dose. And just orally ingesting this substance should be very, very, very safe as long as you did the extraction process. You can just put it in your water. And while that may not effectively you provide all the medicinal benefits, it will still be somewhat effective. And if you want further medicinal benefits, I would recommend smoking a small amount of it, putting it on top of some hemp or some cannabis. And don't use too much. I'm telling you. You'll learn where the limits are. You'll want to push them, and then you'll realize why you shouldn't push them too far. And by the way, I don't recommend holding this substance in your lungs for longer than necessary. I recommend breathing it in and breathing it out. No need to overly toxify your system. I don't see any benefit to that. Now, things with CBD, like CBD, for example, cannabidiol, if you're smoking a hemp plant, holding that in your lungs can be helpful. I agree. But with the dimethyltryptamine, I don't recommend holding it in. I recommend breathing it in and breathing it out, because what I've learned about this chemical is that it can create toxicity in your system. It also will help. It can help clear it, but my viewpoint is that it's most efficient with regards to toxicity to reduce the toxicity to simply breathe it in fully, and at the point where you would start holding your breath, don't hold your breath and just let it out. Now you can experiment with that. But what I've found is that by the time it's starting to take effect, you want it out of your lungs so that you can be breathing normally, so that you can regulate your anxiety, because it can be an intense feeling. So you already want to be breathing normally again by the time that it takes effect to manage your anxiety. Because the thing about this is that this chemical, this medicine, this drug, when it's used properly, is one of the most powerful, possibly the most powerful meditation enhancer of all time. It is probably the most powerful meditation enhancer of all time. Because when in deep meditation, this amplifies your reality and your thoughts, especially your inner world, to a point where you can actually focus on it as though it's right in front of you. It's like as if all of the thoughts in your brain, you couldn't figure out what all, there's a lot going on in there, but you don't know exactly what it is. It brings it all out for you to watch like a movie, like an interactive movie. And if you don't know what I mean by that, what I mean is it basically, like, here's a good example. When we have near-death experiences, sometimes we have like a third-person perspective, like we're watching our life from someone else's perspective, but it's your own life. So you're watching your own life from like the next dimension or whatever. It's just another way of thinking about stuff. You start to be able to contextualize yourself in this greater picture. And that's kind of what it is. It's like you can simulate a different perspective, and it's so effective that it actually, while it takes practice and some fine tuning, you can actually literally like read your inner mind. It actually becomes almost impossible not to. If you've set your intention to truly understand yourself and the world around you, when you use this drug or this chemical or this medicine and you focus on that, it's like clicking on a video on YouTube. It's like, okay, now that the video is playing, like it's as long as you're watching it, it's kind of hard not to see the video. That's what it's like. And I'll caution you against using this for evil, because Satan is infinitely more evil than you, and Satan will have a fucking field day with your ass trying to outclass him. You're gonna get fucked. I guarantee you. But if you go to God, you're going to get protected and rewarded. And once again, shouts out Satan, motherfucker. He's keeping some fucking balance in the universe. But Satan was created by God. And yes, while you were created by God, you are not Satan. Unless you're Satan, in which case, what up, bitch?